In this video, I'll talk about what made me become an extremist. First, I was a Christian, and I used to have hatred toward Muslims, hatred toward communists, and I ended up turning toward Islam and becoming pretty much a socialist communist, with the exception of banning religion. I don't believe that religion should necessarily be banned. I believe that it keeps people from going in a very immoral direction. So now let's start with when I was young. I used to want to be somebody with yellow hair and blue eyes, and I believed that that's what women wanted. And it was, I knew that America brainwashes people to believe that white is beautiful and other races are ugly. Because when I was a child, I wanted to be white with blonde hair and blue eyes, and I believed that it was going to give me beautiful women if that was the case, and I was very sad that that wasn't the case. And later on, I'd be very disgusted, and I'd grow to see women who are blonde as the ugliest of women. Of all the beautiful women from Europe, the ones who are the most ugly to me are blonde-haired and blue-eyed, ironically. So it's funny how it's switched up. I wonder if naturally these are the ugliest women, and they kind of got mad that they're the dumbest and the ugliest. Well, I don't believe anyone's smart, but I do believe some people act stupid. So maybe because they tend to act stupid and they tend to be the ugliest, that they felt they had to do something about it and turn the tables and make people think that they're the best looking and that they're smart or something and that they're superior beings. But anyway, moving on to junior high, there was a girl named Sarah, and she said only my mother could love me. And basically she ended up being right, because even though I was ugly in junior high and ugly before that, when I went to high school, I ended up being a very handsome man, and a lot of women would come up to me. So going on to 14 years old, going to boarding school, there was a lot of whites and racist Asians, and they had their little groups. And there was two racist Hispanics who basically gave me a hard time. I ended up wrestling a lot of people, beating a lot of people up without using my fists. And going on in that same boarding school, they showed me beyond any doubt that there was upper class and upper middle class people who are racist and unempathetic. Going on, talking about that boarding school, there was a white teacher at the school called Webb. His name was Mr. Thompson. He was German looking. He made a joke about how black leaders were leading blacks astray, not because they were puppets, because he felt that black people had no legitimate reason to complain and were just whiners. And so that started fueling the fire that was already in my heart from all that I had been through up to that point. So I go to high school in Morgan Hill, and I pray for this girl. I pray to God for this girl during my sophomore year. During my junior year, I see her. She rejects me, and that's when the extremism really starts, I believe, because I became a hardcore gangster. I wasn't just, somebody just trying to be a gangster to be cool. I was someone trying to be a gangster to fight with my enemies, to get respect, and to be one of the more tough gangsters. And as I started taking martial arts, I became one of the more tough gangsters. But moving on, after that, because I had my heart broken, I ended up going to psych wards. I ended up going to a reform school and a boot camp kind of school. Well, not school, but place in Idaho. And it was over my weed habit, me walking to town without telling my father, me going on the roof to smoke marijuana. They took this as symptoms of a mental disorder, not symptoms of somebody in pain trying to get the only thing that made them feel better, marijuana. The irony of this is that later on, marijuana would be used for even depression and anxiety and all the things that I was feeling, that aren't really mental disorders but are normal human condition. And so, anyway, this is the nurture. It wasn't my nature to turn to extremism. It was the nurture of society, or the lack thereof, rather. So I refer to it as the nurture because of the nature-nurture debate. And so I realize that people are ignorant, especially white people, in my personal experience and 20 years of research. And that is why the term of white denial is used by a white Jew named Tim Wise. Basically, the Santa Cruz Police Department later on, when I was 19, had treated me unfairly in a case of an argument I had with a former girlfriend. And they basically set me up, and there was a judge who was fairly sympathetic, and I ended up basically getting it removed from my record and solving that problem. To this day I still hold that I have no criminal history because it was removed from my record, and the case was basically beaten. So going on, I was pulled over maybe 20, 30 times in my life, not for speeding and stuff like that, but mostly because of suspicion, or if I was in the parking lot, I'd be singled out and the cops would roll up on me. And so getting searched by the cops, getting hassled by the cops, you could call it harassment, I guess. I started resenting society more and more. And also you have to realize that I was feeling a lot of the pressure from control freaks from having gone to reform school, boot camp, and psych wards over what was a normal human condition. And a lot of these people would play stupid about it, especially psychiatrists, especially cops, and they would use it as a way to trample on my rights instead of treat me like a decent human being. Especially the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department are the biggest offenders in my life when it comes to violating my rights, playing stupid or being stupid, and contributing to my resentment of the system by treating me unfairly. Some of them even, thought it was funny. Not all of them. Some of them were just pissed off and racist and didn't know better. Not that that's a good excuse. So, and a lot of it was related to me venting in my room, and, one time, basically, my brother had grabbed me harshly and I had punched him, and, in front of my dad, and they ended up calling, the psych ward on me, the cops, and the cops taking me to the psych ward when I was the victim, but I'm not going to get into that. I've gotten to that in my other videos. That's really how the cycle of going to the psych ward really started, And I went to there many times after that based on, the superficial past history. So every time I was in my room mad, I'm sure many of you do the same thing where you get mad, you try to separate from people, and you say, fuck, or you kind of like when you stub your toe and you're like, fuck, It's something, I go through emotional stress, I start yelling, It's completely normal, completely human. The vast majority of people do it more than the people who don't. People who don't probably have something wrong with them, if you ask me. But going on, I have to talk quickly, because I'm running out of time. And idiots would use that to say, oh, he has a mental disorder. When I have less than 3 minutes to finish this speech, and I have notes going on and on. I'm like halfway through my notes. But anyway, moving on, family pushing pills instead of solutions, not caring about, my family didn't care about doctor or dentist visits, but they cared about pushing pills on me, and trying to get me to go to a psychiatrist who I don't consider a legitimate doctor because it's pseudoscience. I cover that more than thoroughly in my other videos. I constantly complained about the way they were colluding with Santa Clara County Sheriffs and the way they pushed pills on me that made me sick and made me feel like doing something to people. So I think the pills might have had a little bit to do with why I turned to extremism. The effects the pills had on me. Now, of course, they had a lot to do with it because it was part of the oppression. So I felt social rejection. I felt despondent or belittled. And after 9/11, I didn't believe the official story from the start. This is kind of backtracking, a few years. When 9/11 happened around 2001, I believe it was, I didn't believe the official story from the start because I knew how Americans are. I knew how they play stupid. I knew how they blame the victim and all the horrible tactics they have because I've seen it on a macroscopic level. I've also seen it on a personal level. Anyway, going on. My ex-fiance left me for another guy. The 3 girls who I dated after that did the same thing, and finances was a major reason. And a lot of the reason I didn't have the finances was because I went to, people were giving me pills instead of solutions and exacerbating my problem of making me feel helpless and hopeless instead of helping me find real solutions. And I always pointed that out to them. The Marines rejected me over that made-up mental disorder, and this was a major turning point. When the Marines rejected me and they accepted faggots and women, it was a real blow in the face. Like, wow, I could beat up like 5 of the people you recruit at the same time, and you're going to reject me over this superficial, made-up bullshit. And even if I did have a mental disorder, you think you want people like me to go to war, and that would be your way of population control. Anyway, getting rid of the undesirables, which you do anyway, but in different ways. So anyway, I have 30 seconds left. Basically, homosexuals, feminists, racist, control freaks, lack of understanding from brothers who I used to try to convince of the real problem. They bought into the lie about psychiatry. I showed my brother a documentary of psychiatrists saying psychiatrists are fraud. For a moment, he believed me, tried to convince my mom. She was brainwashed too thoroughly. And years of the same old ignorance, same old American politics, same stupid population. People trying to be normal, stupid fags, feminists, control freaks, puppet sheeps, etc. brought me to the point I am now, which is an extremist.